Hey, Paul.
There we go.
There we go. How's it going?
It's going good. So, Austin, how are you doing? Are you ready for Thanksgiving?
I'm ready to go. I'm actually here at my parents' house, and we have some pretty big family traditions here every year. So the whole family gets together. It's a lot of fun. So I'm ready to go, ready to eat.
Okay. All right. On that note, Austin, it is the holidays. Brands right now are gearing up. A lot of them are already roaring. What do you think is the most important thing for them to keep in mind as we go into the 2024 holidays?
So I think one thing that companies definitely want to be conscious of is number one, just trying to figure out how to drown out all the noise and focus on the fundamentals, because obviously with the holidays coming up, there's so many things going on. So you hear about this, you hear about that, and really what's going to help your company succeed and your sales grow is just focusing on the basic things that you need to do well. Things like, making sure that your all the data is good, all your domains have good reputations, everything's clean, doing things from a organizational perspective to make sure that just everything is in order to have the most success you can as a marketer. Really, honestly, it starts back in the summer. And so now is really when you're just trying to field everything incoming and reap the results of what you've done to prepare for this time period. But staying organized, making sure all the fundamental things are in order, and then just executing really on that plan is what you really want to be focused on.
So let's say they're getting ready in December to really, really ramp it up. That's a big time for them. Every single December, they see a lot of email marketing success. They're ready to do it again. They're thinking, okay, this is the time. Let's roll. What do you think are some things that they can do that are going to get those results just a little better this year?
So if you're familiar with the email marketing space, usually when people start out, right, they get a list of data and they'll send to that list, and they'll get some success. Things will have worked and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, this actually worked. I'm going to do this next year or try again." The way to get to the next level in the email marketing game is really get good at segmentation. And this takes a lot of work and a lot of like you need to be able to observe and oversee everything that's going on and really do a good job of understanding how you're going to segment these results and what different types of segmentation you want to do. So I would look at things like, has this customer engaged with us before? Have they purchased before? Have they opened before? Those are three different segments that might require saying three or communicating with them in three different ways, different verbiage in your emails and the volume of emails you might send. So really doing a good job of understanding the different segments, people that haven't engaged, people that you haven't even talked to before, anything cold, all different segments, really understanding your segments of customers and doing a good job of keeping them separate from each other and customizing the messaging towards each of those can really help to improve your results.
All right. So let's just say that they have added considerably to their email list over the last couple of months. You got a bunch of new email addresses. What do you need to do? What do you just add them to the list? How do you play the game?
So the first thing you want to do is consider the source of the data that you just received. Is this data coming from signups on our website? Is it coming from personal signups at like a conference or something like that, where somebody's physically giving you their address? Did I buy a list? How did I get this data is the question you got to ask yourself. And based on how you got that data determines on how you should treat it. Now, the organic stuff is obviously going to be much higher quality than purchasing a list or anything like that. But either way, really, you want to clean the data and make sure that the data that you have is actually going to be valid, so that when you go to use it, it's going to get the messaging that you're sending out is going to get to where you want it to go. So cleaning the data, coming up with the targeted messaging for the good data and segmenting the good data from the bad data and the different types of data that you have is going to really help to enhance the results that you're going to get.
Really interesting stuff. I was one time at a gym and I got into a conversation with this guy at the gym, and he said that he had an email list, but he said, well, most of them are getting through. So if most of the emails get through, do you really have to worry about a few of them that bounce?
So the answer to that is yes. One mistake people make is thinking that they're doing the right thing when they're, I mean, it's better than nothing, but they think they're doing the right thing when they're sending to a list of emails and they get a couple bounces and then they just remove from or those bounced emails from the list so that when they send the next time, they're not in there. But unfortunately, the damage has already been done if you're doing that. The goal is not to have any of those bounces and to make sure that the deliverability is at the highest percentage possible. Ideally, the percentage you would like is 99%. Obviously, 100 you could get 100, but that's 99% is the target. So cleaning the list prior to getting those bounces is what's going to save your domain, because if you're bouncing those emails and then just removing them, the damage is being done to your domain, and that damage that's done to the reputation is going to affect your ability to deliver emails in the following campaigns that you engage in. So getting those out of there afterwards is not the correct thing to do. The correct thing to do is address the problem beforehand so that those things, those bounces and anything going to spam, anything like that does not happen when you're sending emails.
So you're saying it's kind of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure kind of thing.
Exactly, for sure. It's
Okay.
better to attack the problem at the beginning than deal with the bigger problems later on.
How often would you say somebody needs to clean their list?
So that would depend on the makeup of your list and the types of emails that you're dealing with. The average lifespan of an email is anywhere between 3 and 6 months, with the emails on the consumer end tending to last a lot longer. So things like Gmails, Yahoos, AOLs, the things of those nature, they tend to have a longer lifespan than the business emails, the B2B emails that tend to have a much shorter lifespan with people changing jobs and things of that nature. So the amount of times you're going to be looking to validate the emails that you have is going to depend on the composition of your list. Usually what I say, the safe bet, regardless of what type you have, is anywhere between 2 and 3 times a year. B2B, you might want to be on the 3 to 4 times per year level. Once a quarter is usually pretty safe. And then the consumer emails, 1 to 2 times a year is usually pretty solid.
Now, what about when you have a sign up form? Is there some way to keep bad emails from seeping in that way?
Absolutely. So one of the things that's become pretty popular, especially now that people are starting to understand the importance of clean data and high levels of deliverability, is people have loved putting real-time validation engines on their sign-up form where they can actually block the bad emails and validate the good emails at the gate so that they don't have to deal with the problem later on. So as someone's sending in one of their email or entering one of their emails in the form, it's being validated, and then you get the result. Hey, this is a good email. This is a bad email. You get to decide what to do with it, whether or not you even want to let those people pass through into the website, or if you just want to block them and tell them, hey, you're going to have to give us something legitimate. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get through. And then obviously, if it's a valid one, you let them through. You know you have good data. You can feel free to send them marketing information right away. Because one of the things that happen with people's welcome series emails, a lot of times if there's no validation done, that's doing a lot of damage to the domain that you're sending from, because those emails are going out right away, whether or not the person's giving you good data or bad data. And so if it's an invalid email and you're sending a welcome series emails to those people, then those are probably all bouncing right away and doing damage. But if you're performing the validation right away and you know you're dealing with a valid email, welcome series emails are a great thing to take advantage of, because not only are you getting the communication there, you know it's going to get delivered. Everything is going to be fine going forward with the communication that you want to send. So definitely the real-time validation on the forms has become much more popular, and something I recommend anybody using a form definitely look into.
You deal with a lot of customers, Austin. What would you say is the number one thing that you see people struggling with? What are they coming to you and what are you finding out that they're doing wrong, or what are they coming to you and saying, hey, this
Yeah.
is the issue?
Yeah. So I always get one of two types of clients. I always say this, where it's either someone calling in saying hey, I'm doing maintenance of my database, just need to get some list cleaned, some data checked, and I'll be on my way. Or I get people calling me freaking out saying, hey, everything's going to spam. My domain is trashed. I don't know what's going on. What do I do? And then you got to kind of ask them a bunch of questions to diagnose what's going on. But I would say the most common issue people have is just going to spam, not getting the emails to the inbox that they're looking to get to. And so, unfortunately, it's a problem that's either going to be solved in either time or money. So, you really have to just pick out what you want to do in terms of how you're going to go about solving those issues. But getting out of spam is not a fun process. And that's the thing that people struggle with most, where and it's such a simple thing to avoid. We have all these tools and all these things that we do here at Zero Bounce to help with deliverability. None of them are needed if you simply just focus on the quality of your data. Because if your data is good, you're going to deliver. You're not going to have issues. You're not going to do any damage to your domain or have any cause any problems with your email service provider, nothing like that. So if that's if there's one thing to focus on, if you do nothing else, just make sure that you validate emails and make sure that the data quality is good, because then you won't go to spam. You won't have issues with your domain. You'll get the deliverability levels that you're looking for. You'll start to see much higher results if you just focus on that one fundamental thing.
Well, you covered this cleaning of the list. It would be a mistake to not clean your list, but is there anything else that somebody will overlook when it comes to?
So, yes, one thing that people will overlook or do is they will not consider what their domain strategy should be. I think that's one of the most important things now that I've been in this industry now for 6 or 7 years, is coming up with a good domain strategy and figuring out, okay, we're going to send these types of emails from this domain. So if it's a cold outreach, we have a specific domain that we're sending cold emails from. And if we have clients that we know that we've talked to, they're going to come from our main domain because it's safer and it's not going to do damage if anything happens there. We know we've talked to these people. Those emails are going to come from this domain. So figuring out different domains and the different types of communications that you're sending out there is very important in the email marketing world. And if you have a new domain, so one of the things that you might, if you're considering a domain strategy and you want to use new domains, you have to make sure that you warm up the domain and make sure that you're not just going and sending from this domain without ever warming it up or having it be unfamiliar to any of the major email service providers out there. So warming it up and making sure that there's already been some interaction with that domain prior to using it to send is also going to be another very important thing. But figuring out your domain strategy, validating the data, those two things can really, really help improve your results.
Now, aside from email validation, every now and then I'll get a marketing email that really, really blows me away. Netflix, for example, they're really good about, you start watching a series, it's clear you liked it. I got an email the other day and they said, hey, don't forget to watch the rest of this series. Austin, have you ever seen anything that maybe people can apply, not necessarily in the validation space, but just to make emails a little better?
I always say I'm a big fan. The world is headed in a clear direction at the moment with like all this new AI stuff and all this automation, things like that. For me personally, as a consumer and as a business person, or somebody in sales doing outreach, I don't like that. Like, I think that if you want to stand out now, you go the opposite direction and you make it as human as possible. Plain text, plain text. I've had such great results doing plain text emails and just communicating and speaking, being myself and putting my own personality into the emails that I send out, that now when I get emails, that's what grabs my attention. It's just people doing basic communication and not trying to do so much just because even visually it just stands out, because when you see so many of these things, it all starts to look the same, it all starts to feel the same. But then when you get something that's just like, a regular person talking to another regular person, just a basic simple thing, it visually just stands out and grabs your attention, and then you're much more likely to read and engage, especially because I know it's coming from a human being. I'm more likely to engage. Nobody wants to get emails from robots, nobody. And so, it's all headed in that direction. Me personally, I think now, because it's all headed in that direction, a very good strategy is just to lean into the personal aspect of what you can offer. Like, while everybody's adapting to the AI stuff and the automation coming out, use what you have to an advantage, which is humans. Use that, and that human touch is now becoming more and more of an advantage, just because everybody's headed in that other direction. Yes, there might be able to be things done like from an automation perspective that can be a bit more efficient, but in my opinion, it's quality over quantity. And if you really want to communicate with somebody and build a relationship with somebody, no better way than just being a regular human being.
Excellent. Excellent. So, in closing here, we are just a few weeks, not long at all until we go into a new year. What are some things that people can do in the coming year so that they will reach their email marketing goals? Just whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah. I would say, again, number one, keep it simple. And if you're new to email marketing and coming into email marketing, the weird thing about emails is it does seem very simple from the outside looking in, but there's other things that are going on behind the scenes that make it very simple, or make it seem very simple with the way it works. So you can get caught up in all the weeds and all the things going on behind the scenes to make email work. But if you keep it simple, there's simple things you can do to just ensure your results. And focusing on those fundamental things will not only make it a smaller, it'll seem like a much more manageable endeavor than doing a million different things. And so if I am starting fresh, what I'm making sure is, number one, I have a good solid domain, and I have a couple domains that I might want to send from. If you're getting new domains, those little packages now that they offer, the at GoDaddy or any of those other places, they have like the .net or the .com, .net, .org combination that you can get them, and then use them for different things depending on what you're going to do. So get your domains, get the domains warmed up. Make sure that they're warm and you're starting off on a good foot with all the email service providers. Number two, find a good email service provider to use, something that you like, that you're going to understand the interface, know how to use, can afford, all those things that check the basic boxes. And then whatever data you're going to send to, make sure you get it clean so that you're starting with a clean list. Don't just go sending to data that you don't have or that you don't know is actually good or bad. Make sure you've cleaned it all and know that you're just going to start on a good foot. Because if you start with new domains or fresh domains directed for the type of communication that you want, whether it's cold or already engaged people or what have you, you warm them up. Every email service providers are familiar with you, and then you're going to send a good email so you know they're not going to bounce. You're going to start pushing the ball in the right direction for sure. And staying focused on those simple things, just clean data, good communication, good content, I don't see how you can go wrong. Keep it simple. Don't get yourself into the position where you have to start looking at all these other things, like what's going on with my email headers. Do I need to do placement tests before I start sending again? And what's going on with the server I'm sending from? Is everything good with my IP? Nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to deal with that. And so don't get yourself into that position. Keep it simple and just make sure you're doing the fundamentals, and you should be fine.
Austin Helm, thank you so much. This has been a perfect interview.
All right, Paul. Always a pleasure.
All right. Absolutely a pleasure here.
I'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you next time.
Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to everybody out there as well.
Happy holidays and
Take
Happy
care.
New Year. Bye-bye.